In the brutal winter of 1874, Isabella Costanza, 18, discovered that her worth to her family could be calculated in dowries, a chilling revelation that cut deeper than the winter wind howling through the village. She stood on the threshold of her home, her slender frame trembling against the frozen air, fingers clenched at her sides, heart racing with an overwhelming mix of fear and shame. The snow blanketed the ground in a white shroud, a stark contrast to the dark turmoil brewing within her. Her sister, Marisol, with beauty so delicate it seemed woven from the very threads of the morning light, was promised to a wealthy merchant, a happiness that felt like a distant star, unreachable. Isabella would be an acceptable offer in exchange for the dowry I need, her father Ramon declared dismissively, his eyes fixed solely on the man sitting across from him, a merchant well known for the lavish gifts he bestowed upon families like theirs. Each word sliced through Isabella like a razor, an assertion of her value that reduced her existence to mere bargaining chips. Her heart sank further as the merchant's leering smile unfurled, a wicked expression that creased the lines of his face as if he were inspecting cattle for sale rather than a daughter. "You'd best ensure she understands her duties, Ramon," the merchant sneered. "A girl who has been raised to be worthless is a burden to a man of my station." The intricate designs of Isabella's dress, meant to enhance her beauty, hung heavy around her, resembling chains that weighed down her spirit, a living reminder of her inadequacy. She felt the cold wooden doorframe pressing against her back, the icy reality of her situation creeping closer, wrapping around her like the relentless chill of winter. "Father, please," Isabella's voice trembled as she broke free from her helpless paralysis. "Do not do this!" Her plea echoed in the silence that followed, but Ramon's features hardened. "What's done is done, Isabella. You'll bring honor to this family through your sacrifice." A wave of icy betrayal washed over her as the merchant turned a disinterested glance in her direction. "Ashamed to waste such a pretty face. We will make a fine match," he replied, his lecherous eyes feasting upon her, leaving her feeling exposed and vulnerable. As they sealed the deal with a handshake, Isabella felt her heart shatter beneath the impact of betrayal, each pulse reverberating through her being, each beat echoing the finality of her father's decision. To be auctioned off in exchange for wealth, it was a family shame that became an anchor, weighing her down as the snow settled thick upon the ground outside. "Hello, my dear friend. This is Jasper Ashwood, your narrator of Mountain Tales. Before we start, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from. A big hug to you all, and I hope you enjoy the story." As Isabella was carted away from her childhood home, the weight of despair consuming her spirit, the silhouette of the rugged mountains emerged in the distance, stark and unforgiving against the pale winter sky. The horses' hooves clopped against the frozen earth as her relatives waved goodbye. Their expressions were indecipherable, woven with threads of cruelty and compliance with society's expectations. Upon arriving at the secluded cabin deep within the mountains, the chill stung her cheeks, forcing her to retreat further into her layers of clothing. She shuffled forward, each step heavier than the last until she stood on the porch, a timber threshold leading into an existence steeped in the unknown. Lorenzo stood at the entrance, a man whose solitary nature spoke volumes of his past. Her eyes darted to his, catching the shine of silver blue, both piercing and soft, as they reached for her heart, revealing curiosity paired with compassion. "Come inside," he said, stepping aside to grant her passage, his voice a warm contrast to the biting cold enveloping her. Tentatively, she crossed the threshold, feeling like a ghost slipping into a hidden realm. The inside of the cabin was modest, yet it radiated an unexpected warmth, a stark contrast to the heavy air outside. Isabella felt the remnants of bitter cold cling to her as she trembled, still uncertain of the man who now held her fate in his hands. "You're not like the others," she managed to whisper, doubt clinging to her tongue. Her instincts warned her against trusting so easily, the walls of defense she had built through years of shame still echoing loudly within. Lorenzo regarded her with an intensity that made her heart quicken. "No, I'm not," he replied quietly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm not here to bargain, Isabella. I'm here to offer you a sanctuary." In the days that followed, Isabella struggled with her ingrained suspicion, wavering between the remnants of fear and the unfamiliar warmth manifested through Lorenzo's kindness. Each morning the sun peeked hesitantly over the mountains, illuminating the cabin in a soft glow, signaling the start of a new day filled with potential. Lorenzo moved with a grace that belied his rugged exterior. He chopped firewood with deft strokes, tended expertly to the hearth and hummed softly under his breath, filling the air with melodies she had long forgotten. Watching him, Isabella found herself reflecting upon the tasks she had never been allowed to perform, her hands itchily yearning to create something meaningful. "Why do you do it alone?" she ventured one evening, the fire crackling softly in the background as they warmed themselves beside it. He paused, looking into the flames before replying, "I have reasons, but it's easier this way. The mountains have taught me solitude can be a friend. Have you ever found yourself alone?" Isabella's thoughts drifted to her childhood. The laughter of her sister echoed in her mind, moments that felt far too distant now, overshadowed by her family's cruelty. She shook her head, curling tighter into herself. "I never had the choice," she whispered, opening the floodgates of vulnerability ever so slightly. Trust began to sprout like fragile blossoms littered on the snow-covered ground, nourished by Lorenzo's unwavering respect. As days passed, the walls she had constructed crackled and shifted. She found herself daring to display her worth beyond mere beauty. One morning, compelled by determination, she fashioned a simple tool to aid in their daily tasks, her heart soaring when Lorenzo's eyes lit up with pride, a spark igniting within her chest. "You have a talent for this," he praised, his voice warm and encouraging. With each passing day, the isolation she felt began to thaw, replaced by a connection that felt more potent than any bond she had known. Surprisingly, laughter began to ripple around them, the first notes of a long-forgotten melody. Each story Lorenzo shared revealed bits of himself, the wonders of nature, memories of a love long lost, the tranquility of the mountains, teaching her that beauty could flourish in the aftermath of despair. But comfort often proves fleeting, and shadows loom larger when plagued by the past. One fateful day, remnants of Isabella's family collided with her present when she stumbled upon a letter carried by the wind, its familiar seal bearing her father's mark, a harbinger of dread. Panic gripped her heart as recognition struck like lightning. Ramon sought to reclaim what he believed was his, her. As the flood of fear washed over her, she found herself spiraling, the gnawing anxiety twisting in her chest. Would Lorenzo still want her when he learned the truth of her backstory? Would he understand her struggles against a father who viewed her as mere property? A wall began to form around her heart again, instinctively retreating into memories of shame, the past resurfacing like a spectre she could not escape. Yet Lorenzo stood steadfast against the growing darkness. His reactions were measured, a calm strength anchoring her as she felt herself fluttering away. "You cannot run from your past, Isabella," he urged one evening, patience woven into his voice. "But you can choose how you walk into your future." Those words resonated deep within her, breaking through the chains that had long confined her spirit. She understood then that confronting her past would not be easy. Yet Lorenzo believed in her capacity to rediscover the woman she was beneath the weight of her family's cruelties, a realization that fueled the flicker of hope in her heart. As the weeks unfolded, it became apparent that the spectre of Ramon would return, pressed against her heart by an ever-looming chill, much like the winter's bite clinging to her skin. And in that moment, contemplating her future, Isabella understood the true journey of reclaiming her identity was only beginning. The days turned into a rhythm that resonated throughout the cabin, the sound of the river rushing below, playing a constant backdrop to Isabella's thoughts. With each new dawn, the world outside melted a little more, the cold retreating in favor of spring's awakening. But ever present in the back of her mind lingered the reality that her father could return at any moment, bringing with him the weight of her past and an ultimatum to return to a life of subservience, of being a mere pawn in a game of wealth. One morning, Lorenzo was up before the sun, stirring the fire back to life. The warmth enveloped Isabella as she shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her hair still tousled from the night's rest. The inviting scent of warm bread fresh out of the oven filled the air, replacing the sharp chill with something softer. She couldn't help the smile that broke across her face. "Good morning," Lorenzo greeted, his features softening as he met her gaze, the firelight dancing over his rugged hands as he tended to their meal. "Good morning," Isabella replied, her tone still drowsy but laced with an undercurrent of excitement. Every interaction was a new layer of intimacy, slowly being woven between them. She moved closer, breathing in the comforting aroma that promised a satisfying meal and the hope of a good day ahead. "Today I thought we could venture to the stream and gather some herbs. I've seen some wild mint blooming," he suggested, a glint of enthusiasm in his voice. It will make for a refreshing tea and aid in your recovery. Her heart warmed further, but anxiety curled around her thoughts like a tendril of smoke. But what if we run into others? What if they recognize me? Lorenzo paused, a flicker of understanding passing through his silver-blue eyes. We won't go near the village if that worries you. The mountains are vast, and there are plenty of safe spots to gather what we need. I promise. As they shared breakfast, the bread warm and delicious, the flavors enhancing their connection, Isabella found herself falling into the flow of conversation, forgetting the weight that always hung over her. They talked of the weather, of the mountain's beauty, and even of their shared tasks around the cabin, laughter punctuating their exchanges, sending ripples of warmth through the chill still lingering in her heart. After breakfast, they prepared for their excursion by gathering their supplies. Isabella joined Lorenzo in filling a woven basket with cloth, scissors, and small jars, excitement swelling within her as they made their way out into the spring air, a world awakening, vibrant and promising. The path was narrow, flanked by towering pines that whispered secrets with the breeze. The sound of the stream grew louder as they approached, calling to her, a sweet melody of nature that washed away the fragments of doubt still clinging to her. As they walked, Lorenzo shared bits of wisdom about the plants they passed, his patience illuminating the wonders she had previously overlooked. Be careful with these. He pointed to a cluster of wildflowers. Some can be dangerous, but others hold healing powers if used correctly. Isabella listened intently, heart racing not just from the brisk mountain air, but from the flutter of realization she felt with each new piece of knowledge fed to her. Here in the cradle of the mountains, she was starting to blossom. With every step forward, not only were they walking toward the stream, but they were both carving a new path. Companionship was growing, nurtured by the fresh air and laughter. Once they reached the stream, Isabella watched with a sense of wonder as Lorenzo knelt by the water, the sunlight dancing off the surface, creating shimmering reflections that seemed to mimic the light in her heart. He called her over, and she knelt beside him, dipping her fingers into the cool water. It felt like baptism from her past, a cleansing taking place as they spent the afternoon foraging for herbs, laughing and sharing stories like children exploring a new world. "That's it," he coaxed, his voice warm and guiding. "You have a natural touch." She gathered mint, marveling at its sharp scent. "I can't believe I never knew about this. It feels like unlocking a door I didn't know existed." Lorenzo's smile widened. "You've been locked away for too long. This is only the beginning." As the sun shifted in the sky, casting a golden hue over the peaceful landscape, Isabella felt something within her shift as well. It was a tentative hope, but it felt real, more like a pulse she could follow. Back at the cabin, they dried the herbs by the fireplace, their faces illuminated in the warmth. Conversation flowed easily between them, and she found herself sharing pieces of her past, carefully selecting what to reveal, still cautious of showing too much vulnerability. Little by little, the walls around her heart began to dissolve, paving the way for trust to establish roots. She could see the caring man Lorenzo had always been, patient and understanding, a safe place amidst the storm of her memories. As the days slipped into weeks, Isabella started learning more than just herb gathering. Beneath Lorenzo's watchful eye, she learned to mend clothes, cook, and even a bit of woodwork. Each small achievement boosted her confidence further, and she bore witness to her own transformation on the cusp of spring, the tender green shoots of new life breaking through the remnants of winter's harshness. Yet despite the comfort intertwining with her reality, a shadow loomed ever closer. News from the village trickled in, whether it be by their occasional visits from townfolk or through the whispers of the wind. Her father's hold seemed to linger in the air, a ghost haunting her thoughts. Each day she became increasingly aware of the fragile thread keeping her in this sanctuary, one that could be cut at any moment. It was an ordinary evening when it happened. Lorenzo had returned from gathering supplies, his expression a mixture of concern and urgency. "I need to tell you something," he began as he placed his basket on the table, his tone low. "The townsfolk were talking about your father today. They say he's planning to return, this time not for simple inquiries." The world around her tilted. The warmth of the cabin suddenly felt stifling. "What do you mean? Why would he come back? I thought he might forget about me." Panic clawed its way up her throat. "He's angry, Isabella. He's furious at having lost part of his fortune, and he's not willing to let you go without a fight." Lorenzo's steadiness grounded her, though the dread creeping into her heart felt overwhelming. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself as reality closed in on her. Ramon was not about to let go of his claim, not without the kind of confrontation she dreaded, the one that would push her back into the shadows. "But I can't go back. Not to that life, not as a pawn." Lorenzo's gaze softened, determination gleaming in his eyes. "Then we will prepare. You have a choice, Isabella. You don't have to face this alone." The serenity of the cabin was stripped away in an instant. It transformed into a refuge brimming with violation, and though fear coursed through her veins, with Lorenzo by her side, a flicker of resolve ignited. This time, she would not simply endure. "Tell me what to do," she replied, voice steady despite her racing heart. "I won't let him dictate my life anymore." He took a step closer, their eyes locking fiercely, a silent acknowledgement of the battle that loomed ahead. "Together, we'll face him. We'll gather evidence, find allies among those who respected you and see your worth." As they spoke, Isabella felt the strength of his resolve intertwining with her own. In this endeavor, they would forge their weapons of truth together, casting aside the chains of her past. And so they began to plan, mapping out a path forward lay ahead of them, a course determined by courage and fortified by the belief that she was capable of reclaiming her identity, her worth, and her future. The mountains echoed their determination, the wind whispering promises of strength to come. As dawn broke over the mountains, a sense of urgency filled the cabin, the air thick with anticipation. Isabella and Lorenzo had spent the previous night crafting a plan, one that wove resilience and strategy together like the roots of the great oaks surrounding them. Today marked the beginning of their campaign to reclaim her identity and confront the specter of her father. "Today, we start building alliances," Lorenzo said, his tone firm yet encouraging. "You need to show the people who have seen you as a victim that you are a fighter." With each word, Isabella felt her apprehensions transform into resolve. "I want to be more than a ghost from the shadows of my past," she declared, determination sparking in her gaze. "Let's go." As autumn's chill began to settle on the mountain, they set out toward the nearby homesteads. With the burst of colors painting the landscape gold and crimson, Isabella and Lorenzo moved with purpose, drawing strength from the vibrant scenery. Their first stop was the farm of Elena, the woman who had offered her kindness on their earlier visit. Approaching the cozy, sunlit cabin, Isabella's heart raced. Memories of her father's oppressive hold shadowed her thoughts, reminding her of the stakes involved. But she squared her shoulders and knocked on the door, invigorated by the spirit of compassion she had begun to find within herself. Eleanor greeted them with a warm smile. Her wild curls bounced as she ushered them inside. "Welcome. It's wonderful to see you both. Come in, come in. There's plenty of bread fresh from the oven." As they settled down, Isabella took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. The rustic comfort of Elena's home enveloped her, sunlight streaming through the windows, the smell of baking bread, and the sound of children laughing outside. It was a stark contrast to the suffocating dread she carried. "Isabella, Lorenzo, what brings you here?" Elena asked, eyes twinkling with curiosity as she presented them with platters of food. "Thank you for your hospitality, Elena," Lorenzo said, his tone respectful as he accepted the bread. "We're not just here for your bread. We have something important to discuss." Elena's brow furrowed, sensing the weight in his voice. "What is it?" Isabella exchanged a glance with Lorenzo, who nodded encouragingly. "My father is returning. He intends to reclaim me," she blurted, the words stumbling out like a wave crashing against the shore. Elena's expression turned serious, understanding dawning on her. "But you're not his to reclaim. You are your own woman, Isabella." "I know that," Isabella replied, urgency fueling her words. "But he doesn't see me that way. I need allies, people who respect me, who will stand with me against his claim." Eleanor nodded knowingly, resting her hands on the table and leaning closer. "You're surrounded by people who appreciate you for who you are, not the weight of your father's expectations. You have a community that will support you. We will stand with you." Isabella felt the weight of doubt lift slightly, hope curling in her chest like spring buds during thaw. "Thank you. It means more than you know," she whispered, her voice cracking. Lorenzo's reassuring hand on her back provided the strength she needed. "And we'll need to spread the word, share your story. Others must know what's at stake," he proposed, his intensity grabbing both women's focus. Over the next hours, plans crystallized. They would visit neighboring farms, speak to former acquaintances, and rally people to rally behind Isabella's cause. She poured her heart into articulating her need for sanctuary, a home defined by freedom rather than oppression. As they made their way from one homestead to another, Isabella's confidence blossomed alongside the autumn colors. She found herself recounting her truth, unveiling the scars left by Ramon's tyranny, igniting fires of compassion and support among those who listened. Each conversation wove her deeper into the fabric of community life, slowly transforming her from an outcast into a beacon of resilience. Days blended seamlessly into a busy whirlwind. Isabella and Lorenzo moved from farm to farm, discussing her plight with anyone who would listen. Time and again she was met with understanding and support, camaraderie blooming from the seeds of her vulnerability. Word spread like wildfire. Soon former neighbors and allies joined them, women and men alike stepping forward to lend their voices to her cause. Isabella felt invigorated by the swell of support, seeing how deeply ingrained her worth was within the collective memory of the community. One evening, as Isabella and Lorenzo returned to the cabin, weary yet fulfilled, Isabella couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. Just weeks ago, she had been trapped by fear and shame, and now she was surrounded by a motley crew who believed in her. "We've invited everyone to gather at Elena's barn for a meeting tomorrow evening," Lorenzo announced as they entered through the door. "It will be a space for you to share your story with even more people, an opportunity to build solidarity and strength." Isabella's heart fluttered with excitement and trepidation. "What if they turn away? What if they think I'm not worth fighting for?" "They will see your strength, Isabella," Lorenzo reassured, his gaze steadying. "You have transformed their perception. They've seen the strength you possess, how far you've come. Trust that the community recognizes the value of what you can bring." As fear settled like a shadow, Isabella's resolve hardened. She had come too far to retreat now, so the thought of standing in front of the community, facing them while sharing her truth and reclaiming her power, ignited something fierce within her. The night of the gathering came quickly. Lanterns flickered to life as community members filtered into the barn, a sea of hope and solidarity. Isabella stood off to the side, the shadows of doubt heavy against her skin. Lorenzo came up beside her. "Isabella, remember the power of your voice. You're worth fighting for." With a deep breath, she nodded, silently summoning every thread of courage she had woven over the past weeks. One by one, neighbors filled the barn until it hummed with warmth and energy. She glanced around, her heart racing at the energy in the air, the anticipation of standing as a united front against oppression. As Elena stepped forward, the crowd quieted, and Isabella felt warmth radiate through her chest as the community leader began to speak. "Thank you all for coming," Elena began, her voice warm yet resonant. "We are gathered here not just for Isabella, but for a cause that transcends individual struggle. In our community, we believe in freedom, support, and the right for every person to be their own master." The murmurs of agreement washed over Isabella like a soothing balm. One by one, others spoke up, sharing their experiences and the importance of standing against tyranny, even when it threatened them personally. Each voice added depth and richness to the gathering, fortifying the strength of their cause. Then it was her turn. With shaking hands, she stepped into the lantern-lit space at the barn's center. She drew in a slow breath, channeling all the determination she had harnessed over the weeks. "My father believes he can reclaim me, a life he sees as an asset," she began, her voice trembling yet firm. "But I am not a possession to be traded. I am a woman with dreams, a heart that beats with hope, and a spirit that can't be broken." As she spoke, her initial fears began to wane, the tides of support washing over her like waves of encouragement. "For too long, I lived in the shadow of his control. But here, surrounded by all of you, I see the power of community, of friendship and trust." With each word, she could feel the energy in the barn shift, a collective heartbeat resounding through every spoken truth. Isabella poured her heart out, sharing the pain and oppression she had endured, sinking deeper into the well of vulnerability she had fought so hard to reclaim. As she finished her story, the barn erupted in a chorus of voices supporting her, pledging solidarity to her fight. Isabella could hardly fathom the magnitude of their strength. It was visible in the faces of her friends and neighbors. "I will not be silenced," she declared, her voice rising above the crowd. "Not now, not ever. Together we will stand against the shadows of the past." Elena stepped forward again, a look of pride on her face. "This is a community of strength. Anyone who stands against you, Isabella, will stand against all of us." The room erupted in applause, the sound a tidal wave of support washing back over her, each clap echoing her newfound worth and value. She felt rooted, solid in her decision to take a stand not just for herself, but for others like her, others who had faced similar tyrannies, that sense of purpose igniting a passion within her she never knew existed. With those words, Isabella realized she was striking a chord deeper than her own struggle. They were harmonizing her journey with the lives of those around her. The community danced to the sound of resilience, weaving an unbreakable bond woven through the shared experiences of pain and the collective triumph over darkness. And as they vowed to protect their own, Isabella had never felt more alive. As the celebration within the barn continued, the energy pulsated like an electric current, lifting Isabella higher with every cheer and shared word of encouragement. The warmth of camaraderie flowed through her, knitting bonds that would fortify her against the storm to come. But amid the jubilance, a quiet voice whispered doubts in the back of her mind. Why would they stand against Ramon for her? Would it truly make a difference? Lorenzo stood beside her, sensing her internal turmoil. "You have become a symbol of hope," he said softly. "People are rallying behind you because they believe in what you've begun to transform, in your power." His faith seeped into her veins, banishing the shadows. "It is hard to believe that I've changed so much," she admitted, glancing around at the faces shining with determination. Before he could respond, Eleanor called for attention, her voice carrying through the assembled crowd. "Thank you all for your support and your voices. We are stronger when we stand together. Isabella has shown us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the resolve to face it. Now, let us prepare to defend our own. We need to gather evidence to stand united when Ramon arrives." As Elena spoke, Isabella felt a tide of gratitude swell within her. She was not alone. Her community was prepared to assist her in reclaiming her life. It wasn't just a battle for herself, but for everyone who had ever been held back because of the chains of someone else's cruelty. Over the next few days, Isabella worked side by side with her allies in a whirlwind of strategy and preparation. They canvassed the town, speaking to neighbors and gathering testimonials from those who had witnessed her father's oppressive actions. The effort felt like a tapestry being sewn together, each voice a thread, weaving a narrative that would showcase her strength over fear. One afternoon, while they were meeting at Elena's barn, Lorenzo handed Isabella a stack of letters and statements. They had gathered words from numerous individuals who had seen Isabella's struggles firsthand, and even from others who had been victimized by Ramon's manipulative ways. "This is our foundation," Lorenzo said. "These stories will show the truth of who you are and what he has done to others. We can present them if he attempts to make his claim." Isabella nodded, fighting the swell of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. "I've shared my story, but it gives voice to the others he has harmed," he finished for her. "This is about more than just you. It's about all of us standing against tyranny." With each page she read, Isabella felt the anchor of resolve secure itself, her purpose becoming clearer with every line. But there remained a gnawing doubt. What if Ramon refused to back down? What if he tried to manipulate and intimidate their community? Those doubts followed her like a shadow, lingering between the moments of laughter and triumph. Each evening, as she sat alone in her cabin, she would find herself staring into the flickering shadows cast by the firelight. Memories of her father's smoldering rage crept back into her thoughts, like ghosts whose stories were lost in the silence. She often turned to Lorenzo for comfort during these heavy nights. One such evening, as they sat outside under the expansive stars, Isabella shared the weight of her heart. "What if he comes for me, Lorenzo? What if I can't burn down the walls he's built around me?" With an unwavering gaze, he turned to her, his face illuminated by the moonlight. "Then you face him, Isabella. Not alone, but with all of us. Remember, fear diminishes in the light of shared strength. You are stronger than the chains he tries to bind you with." His words resonated within her, awakening the spirit of defiance that had lain dormant for too long. She felt the fire rekindling, breathing life into the quiet ashes of her dreams. The day of reckoning finally came. Isabella awoke to a heavy sky, dark clouds looming in the distance, thunder rumbling ominously. Her heart thudded in her chest as she prepared for what lay ahead. The collective energy of anticipation flowed through her, like the wind rustling the leaves outside, a blend of fear and hope. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple yet elegant dress that allowed her to move freely, a symbol of the woman she was becoming. It felt important to embody resilience as she stepped into the world outside. As they gathered in the barn, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of purpose as the community prepared for the impending confrontation. Isabella stood among them, men and women who had braved their own battles, united by the decisions made in the dark. Elena stood before them, addressing the crowd with fiery intensity. "We have gathered here today to stand for Isabella and ourselves. We will not allow fear to dictate our actions. Ramon believes he can shatter our unity, but we are a family that won't be divided." Cheering voices echoed through the barn, each shout amplifying the strength she felt, vibrating in the air. Each face reflected countless journeys of struggle, revealing that their true strength lay not just in Isabella's story, but in their collective experiences. With a deep breath, Isabella stepped forward. "Today is not just my fight. This is our fight. We will not hide. We will protect the bonds we've forged. Ramon may think he can intimidate us, but together we are stronger." The crowd erupted in applause, and Isabella felt herself buoyed by their collective passion. But as the day wore on, worry crept back into her heart. Would Ramon come? Would he dare to confront the unity that had begun to blossom among them? The storm clouds above mirrored the turmoil in her heart, a facade of calm before the inevitable tempest. Just then a loud commotion echoed from outside, and Isabella's heart sank. Voices raised in anger, demands cutting through the murmurs of solidarity. She exchanged a glance with Lorenzo, a wealth of unspoken words passing between them. They rushed outside to find Ramon, flanked by a few local men who had joined him in confrontation. A chilling sight. The dark thunderclouds behind him seemed to react to his presence, amplifying the tension building in the community. "Isabella!" Ramon snapped, his voice a blade through the air. "You will come back with me. This nonsense must end. You've become a ghost of your former self." Pure indignation rose within Isabella. "That's where you're wrong, Ramon. I'm no ghost. I'm here alive and empowered by my community." The crowd around her shifted, feeling the electricity of her resolve, ready to defend her at any cost. "And you think these people can protect you?" Ramon sneered, but Isabella could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Yes, they see me and what I can be," she shouted back, a fierce fire igniting within her. "We stand united against people like you." Lorenzo stepped forward beside her, unwavering. "You've lost your power over her, Ramon. The shackles you've tried to impose are breaking. Isabella will no longer be a pawn in your game." "Foolishness. You think this motley crew can stop me?" Ramon bellowed back, trying to exert his authority, but Isabella felt the collective strength of her allies bolster her resolve. "My worth will not be dictated by your greed," Isabella retorted, fierce as a tempest. "I was once afraid of you, but no longer. You will not take my life from me." At that moment, surrounding townspeople emerged, bearing witness to the confrontation. The storm clouds above rumbled menacingly, echoing the tumult of their emotions, a living representation of the fight swirling away from the shadows of the past. The crowd began to chant her name, their voices melding into a singular declaration of loyalty and love. "I am not my past. I am not your possession. I choose my own future," Isabella proclaimed, letting her voice resonate with the raw energy of the crowd. The storm seemed to settle, and for the first time, Isabella felt that she would not just survive today, she would thrive. Ramon's posturing began to flicker under the dismantling force of her confidence. He shifted nervously, glancing at the sea of faces that stood ready to shield her from fear, ready to extinguish the flames he sought to kindle around them. "Do you think they'll defend you?" Ramon shouted, frustration veiling his desperation. "You're a liability, a burden." "Not anymore," Isabella replied, her voice unwavering, sharp as steel. "I will rise, and I will not fall back into the shadows. I will be the voice for those who cannot speak." The room grew electric with presence, a tapestry of tenacity woven through the collective courage of everyone there. "We are together, Isabella. We stand with you." The crowd roared in response, affirming one another's strength. "Enough!" Ramon finally spat, looking increasingly cornered, his influence slipping away. But his eyes softened as he scanned the unwavering collective faces around Isabella. Perhaps he realized that the power he had wielded was no longer his to possess. "I am leaving this place," he muttered, barely above a whisper, but the weight of defeat hung heavily between them. "But know this, I will not stop pursuing what is mine." Isabella stepped forward, standing firm even amid the swirling storm clouds of uncertainty above and in her heart. "You have no power here, Ramon. You'll find no ownership in me, nor do you own this community. Our strength will remain unbroken." With those parting words hanging in the air, Ramon turned sharply and withdrew. The thunderstorm rolled deep in the distance, but the storm around them faded, replaced by a renewed sense of hope. As Isabella watched him retreat, a weight lifted from her shoulders, fear transforming into satisfaction. The crowd erupted into jubilant cheers, embracing her. Relief washed over her as her heart swelled with a jubilant tune, alive with voices unafraid to raise their own. With tears of triumph filling her eyes, Isabella looked around at the faces surrounding her, bathed in collective strength. She had faced darkness today and stood shoulder to shoulder with those she considered family. "Together, we are unstoppable," she shouted, spreading her arms wide, and those gathered roared in agreement, their voices ringing out against the horizon. That feeling of strength carried Isabella beyond that moment, igniting her spirit anew. Ramon may have retreated today, but she could feel a sense of protection and determination growing deep in the roots of community, emboldening her to forge a future free from the chains of the past. Isabella was no longer just a woman fleeing her father's claim. She had become a warrior, a beacon of resilience embodying the power of a community standing together. As the echoes of jubilant cheers filled the barn, Isabella felt a rush of exhilaration mingled with trepidation. Ramon's retreat had brought a brief respite, but shadows still loomed at the edges of their triumph. She could feel the weight of expectations settle heavily upon her shoulders, a collective belief in her courage to spark change. The community had rallied behind her, yet uncertainty lay coiled within the undercurrent of their celebratory atmosphere. Days passed, punctuated by a nervous anticipation. A sense of urgency enveloped Isabella's vision like a fog, spurring her onward in preparations for whatever came next. The town had been abuzz with whispers of Ramon's threat. No one doubted he would find a way to retaliate. Lorenzo joined her in the barn one crisp evening, where they worked side by side, organizing the documents they had gathered to present their case against Ramon. Lanterns flickered overhead, casting warm shadows that danced along the wooden beams as night encroached. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his brow crease deepening with concern. She paused, looking at the stacks of paper filled with testimonies and letters of support they had painstakingly compiled. "Ready? I don't know if I'll ever feel ready, Lorenzo. But we can't turn back now, not after everything that's happened." Lorenzo cracked a small smile despite the gravity of the situation. "That's the spirit. Fear won't get us anywhere." With renewed determination, Isabella plunged into her work. Each voice documented testified to their struggle and power. Every letter was a testament to the bonds they had forged, a reminder she wasn't alone. As the days turned into nights, the storm clouds rolled in again, churning overhead, mirroring Isabella's internal unrest. Her dreams were filled with shadows, dark tendrils reaching to snatch away her hope. But every time she woke, the daylight brought with it the strength of the community that surrounded her. One morning, as she stepped outside to draw in the fresh mountain air, she caught sight of Elena striding up the path, her expression a mix of determination and concern. "Isabella, we need to talk." "About what?" Isabella asked, noticing the urgency in her friend's stride. "Word has spread that Ramon is coming back. He has supporters now, people in town who believe in his right to claim you. They're saying things, trying to discredit everything we've built," Elena said, brushing a bead of sweat from her brow. Panic rippled through Isabella's stomach, mingling with disbelief. How could anyone side with Ramon after everything that had happened? "They can't be serious." "They are, and we can't ignore it," Elena said, her eyes fierce. "We need every voice in this town to stand with us. We cannot afford division now." Then we gather everyone again. "We make our stance clear," Isabella responded, her voice gaining strength. "We show them that this is about more than just me. This is about our community standing as one." Elena's expression softened, pride swelling as she nodded. "That's the spirit. I'll help spread the word." As preparations for their next gathering began, Isabella realized the stakes had been raised. Together, they launched a campaign, urging everyone to come to the barn, emphasizing the importance of standing united. Each day crept closer toward the moment they would also face off against Ramon's supporters. Willing hearts answered the call, arriving from all corners of the town. The night of the gathering dawned, and Isabella stood at the front of the barn, a sea of faces uniting before her. Lanterns flickered against the backdrop of a starlit sky, warmth radiating through the community. Taking a deep breath, Isabella stepped forward, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Thank you all for coming tonight. This fight is not just mine, it belongs to all of us. Ramon's threats do not just echo in the shadows. He is a storm coming for our community, but we stand together." The crowd erupted into applause, the sound rising and enveloping her like a comforting embrace. As they settled, Isabella's gaze swept over the familiar faces, men, women, and children who had suffered under Ramon's tyranny. This was not just her battle. It was a collective war against oppression. Elena stepped forward, taking a moment to rally the strength of the crowd. We mustn't dwell on the fear that can tear us apart. Tonight, we come together to voice our rights and to stand firm against any who would attempt to take them away. With that, Isabella heard testimonies being shared, echoes of pain, strength, and hope ringing through the air. Each voice added to the chorus of resilience. People spoke of their experiences with Ramon, the manipulative grasp he had held on the town, laying their truth bare like tender wounds to the community. As the night progressed, Isabella's heart swelled, each word fortifying her resolve. Every story of pain served as a potent reminder that they were not alone, that their community was bound by shared struggle and healing. The final speaker stepped forth, an elderly woman named Anna, her hands trembling, but her voice fierce. I've seen many storms throughout my life, ones that try to tear the fabric of our lives apart. This is a moment when we need to stitch ourselves together tighter than ever before. As her eyes scanned the crowd, Isabella could see the fire ignite in everyone, a unified front. The time for fear is over, Anna declared, raising her voice. Let us show Ramon and anyone who stands with him that we refuse to be divided. A wave of enthusiasm radiated through the barn as the crowd joined in collective chants. Together we stand, united we rise. Their voices rang out in harmony, lifting the atmosphere into a crescendo of strength. When Isabella stepped forward again, raising her arms, she felt the energy of the gathering wash over her. This moment is ours. The strength of our unity cannot be broken regardless of the storm that may come. Just then, a loud bang erupted from outside, causing the barn to shiver. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, eyes shifting toward the doors. Was it Ramon? Panic flickered in the depths of Isabella's heart, but she quickly quelled it with the strength she had cultivated. Elena, standing beside her, tightened her grip. We need to see what's happening. Together they approached the entrance, where the clamor of voices grew louder, mingling with the echo of fists pounding against wood. Isabella flung open the barn doors to find Ramon himself at the helm, flanked by a handful of supporters who stood with a mix of bravado and hostility. Their expressions mirrored his, a contentious energy radiating from them, ready to confront the courage of the gathering. Isabella, Ramon barked, his tone unmistakably abrasive. You think a few speeches will protect you? You're nothing but a child playing at rebellion, all of you. The crowd surged behind Isabella, an unshakable wall of solidarity. This is not just about you protecting your claim over me. This is about everyone standing against your deceit. We have long been tired of your manipulation, Isabella shot back, refusing to be intimidated. This is a fight you can't win. Ramon laughed, a cruel and arrogant sound. You think you have power here because of their support? You'll soon learn just how small you truly are. With that threat hanging in the air, he turned his attention back to his supporters. We will not allow her to lead this town into chaos. As tension crackled like static electricity, Isabella felt her stomach drop. But in that instant, Lorenzo stepped forward, his presence a heavy shield beside her. You underestimate the strength of this community, Ramon. We aren't here to stand down, we are standing up. What kind of strength can you draw from a few feeble voices? Ramon sneered, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Isabella took a deep breath as the realization washed over her. This was the moment they had fought for. She lifted her chin high, her heart steadying in the face of the storm. We may be vulnerable, but we are united. Our stories resonate with a power that cannot be silenced or manipulated for your gain. Behind her, voices rose in affirmation, the roar of the crowd becoming a symphony of resilience. Together we stand, united we rise. Today marks a tipping point, Ramon. There will be no more fear, no more control. From this moment forward, we rise as one. The energy electric, she turned to her supporters. Together we can defeat the shadows cast over us. The cheers that followed echoed within the town, sending tremors through the atmosphere as defiance surged forth. Ramon's expression shifted then, uncertainty flickering across his features. As all eyes turned back to Ramon, Isabella felt the fervor rising. This confrontation was far from over, but now they were poised to meet it head-on, together. The atmosphere in the barn crackled with an electric tension, every eye fixed on Ramon, who stood at the forefront of his supporters, his face a mask of arrogance. Yet beneath that bravado, Isabella sensed a flicker of doubt. The crowd's energy pulsed with an undeniable strength, an instinctive conviction that had coalesced amid the storm of confrontation. "Isabella," Ramon sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. "You think this gathering means anything? Your defiance is futile. You'll regret ever challenging me." Inching closer to Isabella, Lorenzo stood firm beside her, a rock of determination. "You underestimate the strength of this community, Ramon. We're not backing down. We're standing up for our rights." "What kind of strength can you draw from a few feeble voices?" Ramon retorted, dismissing their unity, yet the uncertainty in his eyes betrayed him. Taking a steadying breath, Isabella felt the recognition wash over her with fervor. This was the climactic moment they had fought for. "We may appear vulnerable, but we are united. Our stories resonate with power that cannot be silenced or manipulated for your gain." Behind her, the crowd erupted, voices weaving into a powerful tapestry of affirmation. "Together we stand, united we rise. Today marks a tipping point," she declared, the conviction in her voice echoing off the barn's walls. "No more fear, no more control. From this moment forward we rise as one." The exhilaration in the air transformed, each cheer reverberating with newfound strength and defiance. Ramon's confident demeanor faltered, uncertainty flickering across his previously hard expression. His grip on the room was beginning to slip away piece by piece. Isabella could feel the electrifying current of energy shift, igniting a fervor that had long been stifled beneath oppression. "Together," she said, turning to her supporters, "we can conquer the shadows that threaten us." A powerful wave of cheers erupted, echoing through every corner of the barn, filling Isabella with overwhelming pride. She could sense the tide shifting. Each determined face within the crowd fueled her resolve, confirming that they were resolute and ready to challenge whatever storm Ramon would unleash. "Do you really think your gathering can sway me?" Ramon snarled, pulling his supporters closer, as though to encircle them against the warmth of community around Isabella. "Mark my words, this isn't over. You will see the consequences of crossing me." "Consequences?" Isabella stepped forward, her voice strong and unwavering. "You've held power through fear, but we refuse to be cowed any longer. Your reign of manipulation ends here." With his confidence diminished, Ramon struggled to regain his foothold. "You may think you're powerful," he hissed, "but it's only a facade. This town is mine by right, and I will not let you disrupt my plans." As the tension rose, the crowd's determination solidified their stance, eyes shining with righteous purpose. "This town is built on our stories. Our struggles and triumphs are what unite us." Isabella pressed on, her voice ringing clear. "You cannot erase that truth or claim ownership over our lives." Ramon glanced nervously at the faces surrounding him, uncertainty threading between them. They were wavering, and he could see it, that realization galvanizing Isabella even more. "You all have a choice to make," she continued. "Will you stand with him, or will you stand with those who want to build a future where we all belong?" Their response surged like wildfire through the room. Cheers and shouts of affirmation rose to the rafters as they responded in unison. "Together we stand. United we rise." As Ramon stepped back, alarm crossing his features, Isabella felt the tide turn distinctly. This was a fight born not of division, but of a fierce commitment to community. The supporters who previously followed Ramon now hesitated, their loyalty challenged, giving Isabella the confidence that the walls of oppression might finally be crumbling. "Your power wanes, Ramon," Lorenzo chimed in, echoing Isabella's sentiments. "The truth stands here among us. We won't succumb to your threats any longer." With that, Ramon clenched his jaw, realization dawning on him as he became more desperate. The balance of power had shifted. "You think you have the upper hand, but I will show you why I am feared. And we will show you why we fight." Isabella shot back, her heart racing with courage. "You may threaten us, but you'll find that we are shadows that take the light from your grasp." With those words, the room erupted once more in a unified cheer, voices rising in defiance, strengthening the collective spirit. Ramon's expression morphed from arrogance to surprise, and then to simmering anger. As he turned to exit, Isabella fortified her resolve, knowing he would not relent easily. But now, with their unity ignited, fear had no place among them. The barn filled with the warm glow of hope as Isabella's heart surged with pride. The battle was not merely enduring, it was theirs to navigate. They would face Ramon again, but this was only the beginning. Together, they would forge a new path, unyielding in their pursuit of freedom and strength. Tonight marked an indelible moment, a powerful claim of resistance against oppression that would spread through all corners of their town. Isabella had ignited a fire of resilience that could not be extinguished. In that moment, Isabella understood that the fight was more than a confrontation. It was a movement rooted in solidarity. They stood not as individuals, but as a single force, determined to shape their fate and carve out a future of vibrant hope. Let the storm come, they would face it together.